where I want to take this is like main thing is I kind of want this to be just as natural as possible. It's not like that, like a super formal, like, oh, here I have to have all my answers rehearsed and stuff. Like it's just a normal conversation, you and I.
Yeah.
Nobody's there. And basically want to go through kind of your like past, present, future, where you've been, kind of how you got involved in entrepreneurship, a little bit about you, um, and some of the other things that you've done, like working with different entrepreneurs in your past. I remember when you were working at what was that guy's name?
I don't know what you're talking
The
about.
packaging.
Oh, Sterling.
Sterling.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, working with him, I know you were talking a lot about like different the things that he was doing with his business, and then going into your current business, working on Twitter, the Twitter business. What do you call it?
Twitter ghostwriting agency.
Okay, is that the official name?
Oh no. The company's Tribe Digital,
Trav Digital.
but yeah.
Okay, cool. And then just going into like where you going with this down the road. So yeah.
Yeah. What's the idea with the podcast? Are you like is it for a specific type of person, or are you only interviewing specific types of people? Is it just going to be like an interview show, or are you doing your own shows? Any thoughts on those things? Or are you just starting out?
Yeah,
Figuring it out?
I have some ideas, like mainly just starting out. I think the main thing, like why I want to do it, one, um, I think it's mainly on entrepreneurship, um, and so finding out about businesses. So that's kind of the sector there, and then um, kind of my reasons for starting. I want to learn from other business owners, learn
Hmm.
from their mistakes, learn from their successes. Number two, gain a lot of connections. I know when you were doing your podcast, you met a lot of different people, right?
Yeah, I did.
You did it for an entire year, right?
Yeah, I did it for a year. I probably interviewed 40-ish people,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was really cool. I've stayed in touch with a lot of them.
So any tips for me getting into
In the
this?
podcast, um, I think it's a great way for people like to get to know you. I've actually seen it be really useful for like if you're building a personal brand or if you're trying to sell something, it's like your customers can get to know you so much better through a podcast than they can through any type of written media, including a newsletter. It's like the affinity between the podcast host and listener is really high. Like people will think that they know you really well and that you're their friend. Yeah, I've been an avid listener of podcasts for like 10 years, and they've changed a lot. Couple like quick things that I would say I've noticed. One is like I don't know how much time you want to spend on this. There's a lot of back end like podcast editing services and things like that. But if you could put like an interesting clip of a conversation at the very beginning, that's like it's like a hook for any other form, like just to bring people in.
Hmm.
Like a 10-15 second, keep the intro like music or whatever pretty short. And then so like the podcasts that I like tend to be more banter like and a little bit less uh interview like formal interview like. So I mean like I there's several that have like multiple hosts, either two or three or four, that I really enjoy, that like they'll just go back and forth and make jokes and things, and that's super fun. But yeah, I don't know. There, you could do a lot of things differently.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of my take on the podcast. What I've done is of those 40 people that I interviewed, I have I took maybe like 15 of them, and I actually have you on this list, but I created a list of, I call it my investor update, even though I've never taken anyone's money. And I just post updates on my business every month with financials, plans, what I've done, etc. The reason why I do that is I want to like grow over time, so it's holding me accountable. And then two, once I like achieve some degree of success, then it's like these people will have seen my entire journey and they'll probably be more than willing to invest money in my next thing or whatever. So
That's
yeah,
super smart.
a lot of good come out of it.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. So you got the list, like you just put several people. I appreciate you put me on the list. I like getting your emails every month,
Yeah.
and seeing your progress. And I feel like it's so it's easy to like lose track of where people are in their life, either their personal life or their business life. But you being proactive and just sending out that email each month, I feel like keeps me in the loop of where you're at. And I'm like, oh dang, I'm rooting for you. I'm like, I want you to be successful. And so I'm looking forward to when we can partner up, either sooner or later. That'll be really fun.
Thanks. Yeah. And you should just be yourself. You're kind of a funny guy, I guess.
I remember when we were at
So
that
just use your humor.
I remember when we were at that pool party, and I didn't think I was that funny. Remember that? The pool party after we got back from our missions. It was at like it wasn't Cole Farnsworth, but somebody's house like that. And like everybody was laughing in the pool, and afterwards you're like, "Oh man, you were killing it out there." And I was
Yeah,
like,
I
"Oh
do
really?
remember that.
Yeah, I didn't think so, but yeah, I appreciate the compliment."
Yes. Addison and I went to high school together.
Yep, back in the glory days. Yeah. So why don't we get started into kind of your background of kind of sharing a little bit about yourself, and then also a little bit about what you've done with entrepreneurship, kind of when you were a wee lad until today.
Yeah. I didn't do much with entrepreneurship as a kid or anything. I I remember I was a big reader, kind of a nerd. I know most kids aren't readers and played sports and stuff. I did both. Um, and
The rare combo.
I remember hearing I read the Aragon series and Christopher Paolini, the author, had written the book when he was like 14 or something. And after that, I was like, wow, I want to write a book. And so because I just knew not because I wanted to write a book, but because I wanted to make millions of dollars. Like I knew that. So like I've always wanted to have money. Um, and then I let's see, was that so I served the LDS mission in Argentina, volunteer mission for 2 years. Uh, Came back. Yeah, I worked closely with so like my cousin's husband who had started a D2C chocolate company, and well, it wasn't not even D2C. It was like a chocolate company sold in store, and I watched that thing grow from zero to like many millions a year, and that was kind of infectious. And it's like before serving the LDS mission, I did a full year of college and was planning on going down the like management consulting route. But when I got back, I was kind of corrupted by my cousin, who it was all about just starting your own thing. And then college took a lot less, became a lot less serious for me. And it's like I majored in information systems, but I took all the entrepreneurship classes as well, and just like got to know a lot of people in the space. Super fun. Started a few like small things that I tried while I was in college, none of which really worked, but It was fun.
Wait, remind
Um,
remind me what were and tell everybody what were some of those things.
so one was a podcast, which I did for a year. I I I was done with it, so it's fine that I stopped. But if I would have found like a co-host, I think would have been a lot more fun and just paid for somebody to do the editing and like I was just making it a hassle. If I was just showing up, it would have been a lot more fun to do. So that's one. And I never ended up I like partnered with some companies, but I never like got paid dollars for sponsorships. And then another one, it's like I I went and bought like 40 of those 40-pound salt water pellets. I
Oh, I
don't know
remember that. Yep.
if um, it's like at least where I live, about 50% of the houses have to put saltwater pellets in their big saltwater softener things, and it's just a hassle to go pick them up because they're so heavy and everything. So I just went like door to door selling those. Told a friend, "Yo, I'll pay you $25 an hour. Come," and he came and did it for like 3 hours. We didn't sell one. And thankfully, I went and returned it to
You
Smith. They let me return all of them.
you
I
went
felt
door to door, right?
door to door. We went to some nice neighborhoods. I was shocked that nobody wanted to buy them. But we were like, they're normally like $4 or $5, and we were charging like 7 or 8 or something. And it's like, I guess, I can't remember if we were just trying to sell the bags or if we were trying to sell them on like a monthly subscription kind of service.
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt bad for my friend. He felt bad for me. It was a funny time, but that and then while I was so I did door to door sales for a couple of months. Didn't love it and learned some important lessons like with selling. It's conviction is everything to me. It's like I wasn't I sold dish TV, and while it did help people save a little bit of money, it's like I personally didn't think the sell was even worth it considering the hassle you have to go through to change everything and like it was just I didn't feel good like selling that product or whatever.
Yeah.
Still did well, but so then I move on from that and I start a mortgage company while I'm in college, like my senior year. Had some ins in that space. Have 3 or 4 uncles that were all in that space and found like a kind of unique niche. It's called mortgage processing. So I was a contract mortgage processor. I would work with a bunch of different mortgage brokers um, and process all their loans. So I was handling a bunch of paperwork and stuff. Did that for a year. It did well. Like I mean, it did okay. It did it compared to just like jobs out of college. Um, got it to like $13,000 a month and uh, hired a virtual assistant to help. But it was I like to be honest, I hated it. It was a nightmare. I had a hard time just like working in it every day. The first 2 months were fine, but after that, it's just like I hated what I was doing. So I just wanted to get out of it. And then come 2022, rates are skyrocketing and I'm ready to get out of it and start like I've always been a good writer and I've been pretty heavily involved in the Twitter environment business side, I guess, for the last couple of years. And I um I started writing for other people. Well, with my own account, I started experimenting. I'd seen some other accounts grow, and I was like, "Oh, I think I could do this for myself." I went from 0 to like 6,000 followers in 2 weeks of really trying, but it wasn't the type of audience that I really wanted, and I didn't want to continue writing that way. But it was just a good like signal to me. It's like, oh, I can actually do this, and so I started writing through another agency. And what the agency does, and what I do now, is like ghostwrite for personal brands on Twitter and help them grow their accounts. So I did that, helped like 3 or 4 or 5 people through that agency, had some good results, and then started taking my own clients. And then about 4 months ago, went full time, started writing 7 months ago. Also decided that I wanted to really like nail the skill of writing and copywriting. So I've written over 500 words every day for the last 250 days, today actually.
Serious.
Um, and like want to hit 1,000 days in a row. And that's like the foundational skill that I'm kind of building off of. So that's a little background.
Yeah, that's and a little more like you talked about before, we went to high school together, and going along with the writing. I remember being in the same AP, was it AP Lang with
Hmm.
Miss Hups, and
That's right.
yeah, I always remember like I always wanted to copy down your notes. We would get together,
And you did. Just
maybe do
kidding.
some ping pong whenever we're doing the AP Lit test. Hey, can I sit next to Matthew? Yeah, but you've always been really good at that, and I didn't know about the book in your past that you wanted to. How old were you when you're like, I want to write a book and make tons of money?
I was like 11.
Because
I think I
you
wrote like 2 chapters of a book, and then I was like, I don't want to do this.
2 chapters. Um,
Yeah.
do you still have that as an aspirational goal one day?
Um, I'm not opposed to it, but I don't care that much.
Okay, because I've seen just like looking at the best ways to pass on wealth to like my kids, grandkids, like looking at just history wise, um, gold and silver, like they can't be destroyed. So I mean that's kind of like a really good way as far as passing on monetary wealth, but I mean it can be stolen. But I mean the one thing that can't is books. So like you have scriptures that have been around for thousands of years, and you have other Dante, and you have the Greek writers and the Roman writers, and so like I've kind of taken a fascination to it. Not like I'm gonna write a book right now, but I think I do want to write a book down the road because I think it's the best way to pass on wealth. And what is wealth? Wealth is knowledge. It's not like you can't just pass on. Let's say you have $1 billion, you pass it on to your kids and your grandkids. Well, if they don't know how to manage it, they're going to squander the money, and the money's going to be gone in 20, 30 years, like the Vanderbilts and like a bunch of these huge families. But if you pass on your knowledge to your kids, grandkids, great grandkids, I found that maybe there's something there. I would like to read that book one day.
Yeah, I think it's great for a legacy, but as far as traditional, what most people would say is wealth, I mean, maybe royalties could continue if a book continues to be sold, but like, yeah, that I mean, different kind of wealth that you're transferring.
Sure, sure. And it's also like I guess it depends on your goal. If your goal is like make money right now, which I think you could do both. You could make money right now with it and have the intention to pass it on
Sure,
to later generations, like How to Win Friends and Influence People. I mean, how many people have read that book and been able to gain some people skills from it? So
for sure.
maybe one day. Um, with your cousin's company, it was your cousin or your brother-in-law, the chocolate
Cousin.
factory.
It was a cousin.
Okay. Um, with his company, have like in the past, did you think about maybe partnering up with him? Did he want to? Was that ever attractive? What's have you kept in contact with him?
So it was just me and him when the company was already doing over 1 million a year. And I was working close to full time. This was right after I got back from my 2 year volunteer mission. And, um, but then it's like I was working in the summer, school was coming in the fall, and I wasn't ready to give up my whole college experience to stay and work with him. So I just come fall, I just stopped. But I was just handling. I mean, I'd only been there for 2 or 3 months, so and when I said that I saw it grow from zero to several million, it's like before the mission, I did a few weeks of work with him, and it was like doing less than $100 a day, and then
Sure.
got back, got into like some big retail stores, and had really blown up. But no, I was just handling like very simple operational tasks and never got super heavily involved. Was it a thought I had? Yeah, I thought like he'd been grinding on it for 2 or 3 years already. So, but could I have gotten some equity and gone all in on it? Absolutely. Just not what I chose to do.
Sure. Sure. What's your kind of philosophy? I've been thinking about this recently. What's your philosophy on partnerships and like joining up with other people, either as a direct, like an equity partner versus
Mhm.
like a contract, but you're still working together? What's your take on that?
So legit partners, I think would be awesome. There's a essay by Paul Graham, who's like one of the founding fathers of entrepreneurship, and he talks about. I can't remember what the essay is called, but basically, if you're working at a job and you're providing 10x value, you still get paid 1x value. If you start your own business and you're just by yourself and you provide, let's say, 2x value, then you capture 2x value. That's the thing with a startup. But let's say that you mixed say I do 2x and you do 3x what the average worker does. Then together it's like we can do 6x. But and that like raises both of us like more than we could by ourselves. But the problem is if you have a team under 10 and you start hiring some C players or some B players, then that really drags you down. It's like you get paid based on the value while you're a small team. As it scales, I can't remember the reason why he says, but um, it's not directly proportional anymore. So that's kind of my thought is like if you're gonna work with a founder, then like it should be somebody that lifts you up and like is as good or better than you at whatever it is that they do.
Okay.
Um, and then as far as just like contract, I mean that's just like a client. It's like all of my clients are. I mean, right now I actually don't have them on contracts. I probably should just to be more professional, but it's like I'm basically partnering with them to grow their Twitters and help them get lead flow through Twitter. And so I work with them. I get some content from them. I write a lot of content for them. Um, but it's like that's a client like business relationship, not an actual partnership.
Sure.
Um, but I mean, I could do rev shares and like charge a percentage of what I bring them, and that's more of a partnership. But yeah, those are kind of my basic thoughts on that.
Sure. Do you want to bring on anybody to the Twitter ghostwriting business right now as anything, or do you want to, what are your plans with that company?
So I've had a freelancer for the past month. I have a bookkeeping team. Um, I have like a legal guy. That's and those are all basically contractors. So
Sure.
that's where I'm at as far as right now. What team looks like. Uh, I at least eventually would probably want a full time employee. I've gone back and forth a lot though, because I recognize that this business, if you think of it on a scale of like so easy to sell on one side and then easy to service on the other side, or it's like if you make it easy to sell, it's going to be hard. That's not a perfect scale. If you make it easy to sell, it's going to be hard to service. If you make it hard to sell, it's going to be you can make it easier to service. Like right now,
More
my service
customizable is what you're talking about?
exactly.
Yeah.
So my service is still pretty customized. Like it's not very productized, and um, it's hard to scale. Like it's a hard business to scale. I actually haven't seen a lot of companies get very big doing this. Like I think it's maybe possible, but like I don't think it's the best business out there, and I would need to do something quite different from what other people are doing um, to keep margins like I've been listening to a lot of Alex Hormozy
Okay.
lately,
He's
and
awesome.
he talks about if you have a service business, it's like you should have 80% gross margins. So I need to charge 5 grand a month if I want to spend 1 grand on fulfillment. And I'm not quite there right now. I'm at like 60 or 70.
Okay.
And so it's like, even to be able to scale, I want to be at 80%. Um, just for some reference, I've done like between 15 and 20K MRR for the last 2 months. This month is actually going to be a little bit less, which is fine. I have a lot of demand. Like I have 4 or 5 people that are like ready to start with me, and I told them I don't want to start until January, and I'm probably not going to take a lot of them because I'm getting more selective now with who I want to work with. But yeah, I mean, I'm going back and forth between the type of business I want this to be, and I don't know if this is the vehicle I want to stay with for the next 5 years. It might just be helping build my skill of copywriting and like have some cash flow, build up an emergency fund, and I might take another vehicle
Mm,
to swing a little bit bigger. Or this could be the vehicle. I don't know yet.
sure. Um, yeah, I really wanna, cause right now I'm looking at starting a new company, and I'm in the idea phase of like uh, what idea to choose, and I have like there's so many ideas you can go from. There are like ideas that already exist of like, oh yeah, I could whatever from mowing lawns to like selling things already exist in retail or whatever that already exist, or you can go the other route of like inventing something new that doesn't exist. Um, like uh, like one of the crazy ideas that I had. This is actually really good. I think somebody should do it. I don't think I can do it right now, but revamp the airline industry and make the airplanes, because we already have the technology to do this. Make the airplanes go 3 to 4 times faster, and make the in and out, the check-in in and out, like a bus stop. And so
Yeah,
you would make the whole thing faster. Sure, there are tons of questions there of like how
yeah.
how you would exactly do that, and that would like take a ton of money. But it's like one idea that's like, yeah, I would love to bring this new thing to the industry. What were you gonna say?
Well, I didn't actually finish this book, but there's a book. It's called "Where's My Flying Car," and it's all about futuristic tech and then historical tech, and the airline industry is basically there's been no innovation since 1950. There were flying cars literally in the 1950s,
Serious.
and and it, there's a variety of reasons why they haven't been commercialized. But I mean, if you think about it, right now we go from A, our house, to B, the airport, to C, the destination, and it's like, why can't we just go straight from A to C?
For sure.
It would save so much time, energy, effort, and like we have the technology. Like you said, planes can go way faster. So what's the deal? And part of it is the fear of flying is a lot stronger than, for example, the fear of driving. Driving is very intuitive. You have 4 tires that turn. Like with flying, you have to deal with lift and drag, and people don't understand that intuitively. And so, with that scare, there's a lot of people. It's like when people started driving cars, they're like, "Oh, careful! The engine might just blow up and you might die." Did that come to
Yeah.
pass? Not really. But with flying, that fear stopped people. Like there were those naysayers, and it was a stronger fear. So anyway, kind of interesting. Like,
Yeah.
I hope that in 100 years the airline industry is fixed because
Yeah.
it's definitely sucks right
Yeah,
now.
I'm gonna if it's not fixed in the next 20, I might get into something there. But I think that I haven't thought of it from the consumer's level of their fear, but that makes total sense. And then
Yeah,
I think that translates to political legislators having that fear of
absolutely.
what happens if somebody dies, what happens if this, and all the legislation that goes behind it. I was talking to my cousin the other day, and I believe this is accurate, but he was saying that Elon Musk, they can already do self driving. They can already do hands off, and the car just drives itself. But they're just waiting on the legislation to be passed in order to actually do it.
They released the beta like a month ago.
Did they? So
Yeah, so
meaning
there
that
is
that it is out in the public now, or
yeah. I
that it's
mean,
under testing.
I don't have a Tesla, so I haven't used it, but like I know that the beta is available for like a lot of users, like
Okay.
hundreds of thousands of cars are able to use the beta.
Okay.
So I mean, you still have to have your hand on the steering wheel, maybe. I don't know the details, but
Sure.
I know that that happened like a month ago.
Okay.
Twitter keeps me updated.
Yeah, I'm sure they do keep you updated on Tesla. Um, so my question is, there are a lot of different ideas. I'm trying to think of some ideas. So this is kind of a selfish question, like how did you come up with this idea for Twitter? I know you explained a little bit about how you're like, hey, I'm good at this, but how did you translate that into a business? Did you like walk through, here are all the financials, here's what I want to be at in a year, or what was that process of coming up with that business idea?
Yeah, no, I didn't do any of that. I'm actually now like starting to do some financial modeling and like I just got my hands dirty and was like, how many clients could I write for personally? How transferable is the skill? How productized can I make this service? Do I want to handle 30 clients and do, X amount of pieces of content for each every single week? Or do I want to handle 10 clients, do a rev share and like just crush it for them?
Sure.
So I'm going through a lot of that this month actually, but yeah, for me it was like I saw the demand was very clear, and then my skill set was very aligned. It's like I love writing. I write for like a fractional CFO, fractional COO, fractional CMO, like a lot of fractional executives. Write for like an email marketing agency. So it's an AI person. It's like I'm learning about all these subjects that it's like I'm kind of ADHD, and so being able to just focus on different subjects and then write about it, just like super fun, just aligned with me. My mortgage company was like I was going to shut it down, and so I needed a quick replacement of cash flow. So I didn't go through like a big analysis or anything.
Yeah.
Just started it, and like it's been fun. Yeah, I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
what it
Yeah.
looked like for me.
Um, yeah, I just have so many questions in this like in that category, because that's where I feel like I'm at.
Yeah,
With the transition from the mortgage company to the ghostwriting, were you able to sell that company or sell those clients? Because I know you were working with your uncle, right, on the mortgage company to an extent, right? Or
he
something.
was one of my. So you think of it like it's actually a really confusing industry. And speaking of broken industries, it's like the mortgage industry is awful. I'm not kidding. It's
Yeah.
like you buy your house and there's 20 different people that take a piece of the money that
Huh.
goes to the lending. It's ridiculous. And I was one of those people. So that was part of the
So
you gotta embrace
for
it
right
if you
now it
can't change
worked.
it.
Yeah, for right now it worked out for you.
But it was B to B to C basically. So I would work with businesses that would
Yeah.
work with customers. They would send me those customers. and I would work with them directly.
Yeah.
My uncle is one of
Yeah.
several different
Yeah.
clients. It's kind of like an agency, but terrible business model. Like I, the problem with B2B2C is, and I guess a pro of it as well is you don't have any control over how many customers you serve. The businesses that you're working with do, and so it would vary heavily month by month,
Yeah.
um, and very hard to scale that way. And the service was it would last for 3 to 8 weeks per customer, and was also extremely variable, very difficult to productize. Just like an awful business, and it was boring. It was terribly boring. Um, yeah. What was your question?
So, were you able to sell any of that business to anybody and get some, I don't know, sell any of it?
So funny enough, I had an offer.
Did
Like
you?
I met with a guy
Oh, yeah,
who
yeah.
has a holding company of different agencies, productized services, and like micro SaaS companies. And he offered, um, like he wanted me to stay on for a few months, and he thought that he could automate the business. I don't think he could have. Um, so I didn't really proceed with it. Maybe I was just lacking in faith that he'd be able to make it work. I didn't think he'd be able to make it work. I'd like tried to. It's like I couldn't even get my VA to help me very much. Um, and she spent 10 years in mortgages, and she just hadn't touched that side of mortgages, and it was like it was hard. Um, so no, I just shut it down. I could have sold it if I'd stuck with it for another 2 or 3 years and like really grinded it out, but not worth it for me at all.
Yeah. Um, because essentially, if I'm understanding this, like what would you sell? Because you're getting the people from another business, so they already have your customers. So it's not like you can sell the customers off to somebody else.
I could sell my relationships with the client. So I had
Did you have
five.
ongoing relationships with the clients?
Yeah, so that was the positive side of it. So, for example, I partnered with this like I partnered with a company in California, two in Texas, two in Utah,
Oh, gotcha.
and
Got not the customers, but the
the
businesses. Yeah,
business
yeah.
exactly. So those businesses, and then I'd done, I closed over 100 loans, so I had experience, and it's like if I could have transferred that experience into systems, and like it could potentially be sellable, but also just the timing of the market. It's like interest rates went really high, and so the whole refi boom of 2020 and 2021 disappeared, and it basically just purchases were happening, and so the whole industry just slowed down a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, it would have been really tricky, and you would have had to hold on to it longer than you wanted to. So it just didn't make sense.
Yeah, and it was eating my soul away. It's like it's it's the type of business that doesn't make you a better business owner. Like
Yeah, because you were just doing all the work.
I was just doing the fulfillment, and it's like that kind of fulfillment doesn't make me a better business owner. It's so like you just have to meet a bunch of government regulations. Like the type of and then switching to this, it's been a dream. It's like it's been so nice. I love my even this business model, while it's like on the scale of 1 to 10, it's still maybe a 4. Like it's not the best business. Um, it's I enjoy it. It's like a good fit for me,
Yeah.
and it's like I'm able to stack away a lot of cash and like just focus on developing my skills.
Um, one last question with the mortgage. You talked about how that would be an industry that definitely needs to be reformed. How
Yes.
what would be ideal? How would you reform it if there minus take out all the 20 guys and just put one guy? How would you do
Yeah.
that?
So I will say, some things have come very natural to me. Some things haven't come as naturally. One of those is just understanding the mortgage industry. Like, it's very convoluted. It's very confusing. The retail wholesale side, it's just like there's so many different pieces, different types of mortgages and products, um, and the main issue is 2008 mortgage and real estate crash, right?
Yeah.
And um, what was happening at that time, I can't remember like the acronym, but basically you could get a loan. You could get hundreds of thousands of dollars lent to you without showing your income and without proving that you have a job. Just absolutely ridiculous. And so, because of that crash and the wealth that was lost, the government now has a lot, they put so many regulations in place. And so,
Gotcha.
you have to meet those regulations, and every lender has to meet those regulations. I worked on the wholesale side, so I would basically, so if I'm a mortgage broker, then I would find a consumer like you that wants to buy a house or do a refinance. You would come to me, and then I would go and I would peruse, say, 50 different lenders and say, okay, which lender is going to fit your needs the best? Most companies don't actually do that. They have like two or three preferred lenders that they'll work with. And then each lender has their own system of like, here's the documents we need, here's how we submit everything. And on the lender side, there's 15 pieces. There's, you're working with the AE, you're working with the underwriter, you're working with um, their, they have different teams within their company. And so my job, which sucked, was like work with the borrower, work with the broker, work with the lender, work with the title company, work with the appraisal company, work with the homeowner's insurance agent. And so I would make requests for all of them. I'd have to collect documents from all of them. I have to review all of the documents to make sure that they fit standards. And I have to submit them. I'd have to basically prove to the underwriter with the lender that the client was worthy of a loan. And yeah, it's just like this is okay. Let me answer your question. How would you make this better? Everything needs to be digitized. It's like you need all of your information in real time on one platform that you don't even have to look at. You just have an API key that can connect with the lender and they get all of your documents automatically, and then you have AI go through the documents and say this is a credit worthy individual or this isn't, or and if they are, this is what they qualify for and this is what they don't. And like that's what needs to happen. Like take out all the nasty paperwork. They say that like um, if you want to go build a business that's going to work, it's like go where faxes still exist. It's like, dude, they don't have a lot of these companies don't have email options. You have to fax things. It's like I've never used a fax machine in my life. It's I only learned how to use electronic faxes because it's a nightmare. Um, and everyone's just doing phone calls all the time. It's like it's so inefficient. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. It's like that might be at some point in my life, I might come back to it just because I have strong feelings about it. And like it's very broken, but I know some companies that are trying to like have your digital identity online and they call it a self-sovereign identity. I think the company's called Trinsic. And I know the founder, I interviewed him for my podcast. And it's like if you could have all of your documents online and then have AI scan that, and I don't have to go collect bank statements from 6 different banks and get a P&L if you're a business owner, and and then everything changes. It's like I had to go and get a P&L from every business owner for a year and a half. I ran this business for about a year and a half. And then at the end of that, after 2020, like that whole thing happened, they changed it back and said, okay, now we don't need these documents. We need these ones. Just like the hassle, man.
Yeah. but if it was, like you said, on one platform, somebody, maybe you build the software of this one platform, then everything is all there for everyone to see, and maybe you have different permissions for different people, but I'm sure you could cut out a lot of the middlemen, right? Or do you think that you still need all those 20 different positions as well?
Um, you don't need all those positions. For sure you don't. Um, it's like maybe you still have an underwriter to review the decision that AI has made, and there is some automation. And like the most innovative company I saw in the space, it's called Arrive, ARIVE LOS. It's a loan origination system, and they would just ship features fast. I think they grew from like 0 to 5 million ARR super fast. But they're like helping brokers. But the problem that I'm saying, it's like if you could digitize all the documents and get lenders to use it, that's like a, and I'm not joking when I say this, like $500 billion plus type of company. Like that's a huge company, and
Sure.
it's a huge problem. Like that would be very, it's like the chances of that working are very slim. I mean, you'd have to work with the government, you'd have to get every lender to agree, and you would, this is the problem with innovation, is if the people in power get, and the people that are in power are the ones making the decisions, and they're the ones that are getting replaced, it's like it's probably not going to happen. It's not going to happen happily for them. They're not going to want to get replaced. If the people in
For
power aren't the
sure.
ones getting
For
replaced, then
sure.
that's great.
Yeah. And
But you're
usually
threatening them.
usually they're the ones that have the political connections as well. And so if they want to stop something from being passed in legislation, for
Exactly.
example, these automotive companies, they're like, no, you can't, don't let Tesla do this. No, they shouldn't be doing this. Wait until we catch up or whatever. And so then they're getting
Exactly.
people to pass laws, and then it's like you legally can't do it, even though you have the technology.
100%.
That yeah, that would be really cool. I'd love to see you make that platform one day. That would be
That would be my moonshot. I have a lot of other problems I am a lot more likely to solve.
okay. Okay.
Um, and
So
I don't know if I've told you this, but I don't, my plans change every 3 months. So I don't know, I don't know what's actually going to happen, but
so
I
do
would love,
mine. So no worries.
it's like, I, I've been inspired by people like Elon Musk, like to live, and by my grandpa, and like different people that I would love to contribute to the world by solving important problems. And it's like the first problem that I really care to solve is like my own finances and my wife and my kids, and just make sure that that's not a concern for us,
Yep,
because that's a nightmare if
for sure.
if you don't have that in shape, and it ruins people's lives. And so that's the first problem I want to solve. That's what I'm focused on. So I don't care what the vehicle is to get there, as long as it's legal. Um, but that's the first problem. And then after that, and maybe even during that time, I have a list on my, just, I use my notes app for everything. And I have like 50 problems, and I bolded the ones that I care about more. And I add to it all the time. And I think about it a lot. And it's just like, I would love to take a principles first, or first principles thinking to solving some of these problems, um, on a whatever scale that may be.
Wait, what? Explain that. First principles.
Yeah. So first principles. Have you heard of that before? That concept?
Maybe. What?
Yes. So it's like a perfect example, since I'm talking about Elon Musk, is, um, I can give you a few examples, but I warn you, I love this train of thought. So
Okay.
you might have to stop me and interrupt
Please,
me.
please.
Um, so NASA launches a rocket that goes into space, costs billions of dollars.
Yeah.
So what's the assumption? The assumption is rockets cost billions of dollars to launch into space. But someone like Elon Musk says, okay, is that true? He'll test that assumption. Well, no one else will start a rocket company because they don't test that assumption. And he says, well, what is a rocket made of? He says, it's made of steel, titanium, whatever. How much do those parts individually cost? Adds it up. He's like, okay, well, that's not $1 billion. That's like $1 million. Like, well, what if we could compile everything for another $1 million? Then we could get a rocket for $2 million, which is, 50 to 100 times cheaper, and figures out, oh yeah, we can do that. And then says, how can I make it even cheaper? And he says, well, the NASA rocket, like, wasn't once it was used, it was a one-time single-use plastic. What if we could reuse it? And so it figures out the technology to be able to land a rocket. And it's just like, you just made space not 50, not 100, but 1,000, maybe 2,000 times more affordable.
Yeah.
And so what does that allow? It allows millions of other space companies to launch over the next 50, 100 years. And it's like the space industry is blowing up because of it. So other examples, there's this
Well,
guy named Palmer.
I remember, just a quick point on that. I remember listening to him. He's like, just imagine if every time you flew a plane, you had to throw away the plane that you used in order to go
Exactly.
somewhere else. He's like, you would never do that. It would just be way too expensive.
So I would actually encourage you, as you're like looking to start a company, like pick a problem and then pick like think through the all the assumptions that might be wrong. Um, so um, anyway, I was gonna say some other examples of this. Like one is just think of education. This is one that I'm pretty passionate about and may get involved in the future.
Yeah.
Um, the education system, why is it the way that it is today? And the answer is because it's the way it's always been. I mean, the way it's been for the last 100, 200 years, but is that the best way? Same with like work. It's like, is the 9 to 5, 40-hour work week, does that optimize for one, efficiency and like effectiveness at work, two, happiness with life? And like, I don't know. And why was it set that way? And it's like, if you can just question some of these assumptions, why are we put in the same in fact, I just recently heard the story of some kids that it's like the parents would speak to them as if they were adults. And so the kids had this incredible vocabulary and they're put in the same grade as the other kids. And it's like their intelligence like diminished. It's like they had to drop to a much lower level. Maybe they're getting some other social skills, but like, and then what if a kid that's brilliant at math, it's like, he could progress 10 years of math in 1 year, but we're holding him to 1 year of math, but he has to learn all these other subjects too. What if you just let him be the savant he is? Um, anyway, there's this guy named Palmer Luckey. He started a company called Oculus, which is the Facebook you put on the VR
Okay.
headset. So brilliant technologist. And then he started a company called Anduril. Both of them have hit multiple billion-dollar valuations. He's a brilliant founder. He's 30 years old. Um, and when he got fired from Facebook after Oculus, and he was thinking about different ideas he wanted to solve. So let me walk you through what uh, first principles thinking is for these problems. So he thought about the prison system. He's like, the prison system is messed up. Incentives are misaligned. Basically, right now, a prison gets all of the money, like they get paid by the government to host these prisoners, and they want good tenants. So the longer a prisoner stays, the more money they get, and then the faster a prisoner comes back after they leave, so after they get out of prison, the more money they get. It's like, what do you think that's going to
Yeah,
do for
what is
reform?
that? What is that incentivizing?
Exactly.
We've all seen Shawshank Redemption.
So he was like, well, could I create a prison that I could go to the government and say, hey, I don't want any money until the prisoner's been out of um, prison for 5 years. That's when I want you to pay me. and then you're incentivizing the right things, right? And the government would be like, of course, if I could keep more money right now, that makes sense for me. And then like over time, you can just outcompete the other prisons and like become a very large prison system that actually helps with reform. He ended up not going that way because he thinks it's feasible, but it would take a long time with lobbies and things like that. The other one that he thought of was, sorry for the background noise. Um, it was, oh, what was it? The prison, oh yeah, obesity. It's like obesity is a huge issue. Do you hear that bell behind me?
I can kind of hear it, not really
Oh,
though.
so he's like, do I have faith that people will exercise more and eat less or eat healthier food? He's like, no, I don't. Like maybe that's a pessimistic view, but what if instead I could help um, people? Like, what if I could solve obesity in a technical, like technological way?
Okay.
So he actually dove into like hydrogen based products and like figured out, could I make this food that's good for you and then make it taste good? And because that's the only way that you can really solve obesity is make food that's healthy for you and that tastes good, that you would rather eat than the junk food. And went through the whole technological process. What would this look like? And figured out that it was actually feasible. What the problem was is that there is a limited amount that you could use until you have to go and get the new food from manure, basically. Like, and so he realized, okay, so it's not a technical problem, but this is a marketing problem. It's like every journalist in the world is going to write about how we're eating food that comes from your crap, you know?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
he's like, nope, okay, I'm not going to do that one. And then he looked at like government defense because that's an important issue, and he wanted to solve an important problem. And so this is the one that he ended up doing, and it's like the incentives again super misaligned after World War II. During World War II, the government and am I okay to keep going? Is this
Yeah, yeah,
interesting to you, or
yeah,
do you want me to
yeah.
switch?
No, no, it's all good.
So during World War II, what happened is the government said to every manufacturer in America, "Hey, make us these weapons." And the people are like, "But we don't know how to make these weapons. We're probably going to fail, and we're going to lose all of our money." So the government said, "Look, I'll pay you everything that it costs you plus a percentage of profit." Okay. And so they're like, okay, there's no risk to us. The problem is after World War II, that same misaligned incentive has stayed. And so what happens? It's like, oh, if I can build a drone system that costs $1 million, if I get 10% of profit plus cost, it's like, why don't I make it $10 million? Then I get more profit versus it should be the other way. How can I make this cheaper and more efficient and better?
Yeah.
And so super broken. And so he started a company there and what he does is because he was already rich, he invested his own money into developing very useful products. So like a drone defense system, develops it, creates it, and then he goes and when the government is saying, hey, we'll give out these contracts, these huge government contracts for $1 billion to create this drone system. And he's like, we could give it to this company that's saying they'll go create it for $1 billion, or we can give it to this company that already has created it. And it's only $50 million or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, of course, it's like they're going to go work with his company. And that's why within like 3 years, it went from a zero to $10 billion company. It's just
Holy
like
crap.
he used first principles with how to start this company and solve this problem. And it's like it's working remarkably well. So I just find it fascinating, and I like to think of the problems that I'm trying to solve in first principles because it's just powerful.
Yeah, for sure. And you can see guys like that. Elon Musk, this guy you said Palmer, what's his name?
Yeah, Palmer Lucky.
Palmer Lucky. That's a sick name.
Yeah,
Um, Guys like that are changing the world and making all of our lives better because of it.
yeah,
So
for
that's
sure.
with this company you have right now. What what are some of well, first off, um, I've known you for a long time, and
Yeah,
there are a lot of people that are you can either be an entrepreneur or an employee, either one, but there are just some people that know how to make money. And you're one of those people on my list of like, man, if you had to make money, you're gonna go and make money. Like you're gonna find a way. And there are other people, it's like no matter what they try, no matter what they do, they're just always in the poorhouse and they just don't have that skill. And I only know a few people in my life personally that have that skill of like no matter what it is, you're just gonna go out and make money. And so providing for your family, making with the business that the mortgage business that you hated and sucked, you still did it for a year and a half and you still made
yeah.
good money. And now with this business, you're still making 12, 15, 20,000 a month and you just barely started what, 4 or 6 months ago?
Yeah, full time 4 months ago.
Yeah, 4 months. And so I
I feel like
really
a small fish, I'll tell you though. I mean, I don't feel it's like thankfully I have been able to make enough to support myself and my family, but like I'm looking at a lot of people that are doing 50 or 100 or $200,000 a month and just thinking like, oh man, I need to learn how to level up.
sure. Yeah, and I think you and I are in that same boat of like how do we get to the next stage after the tens of thousands of a month going to hundreds of thousands a month and then millions a month and you can keep on leveling up. Um, so I just want to acknowledge and I have a lot of admiration for you and being able to do that. I think that's a very unique skill that you have.
Thanks, man.
With the Twitter company, that's what I'm
Yeah.
calling it. With the Twitter company, what are your plans? It's a four on being automated or sellable. What are your plans? Kind of thinking about. I know you're not certain about anything, but what are
Mhm.
your thoughts there of the future?
So the thought has been in 5 years, I just want to have $4 million, like semi-liquid, doesn't have to be fully liquid, after tax dollars. And um, the way I was planning on getting there is build this agency, use the cash flow, like increase the cash flow as much as I can, and then invest in some boring businesses that are going to get good returns, 20% plus, like self storage.
Yep.
So that's been the plan. The plan might shift a little bit. It's like what if I can really upskill and like instead just not worry about investing in other things and just reinvest back in my business and myself and make more money that way. So right now the plan is for this to be the vehicle. Like I said, that may change if there's a better opportunity. I actually have some interesting opportunities that I'd consider, but plan right now is get it's like this month and maybe a lot of next month. I'm just trying to make my fulfillment awesome because truth is, it's like you said earlier, you don't have to be innovative. Like you don't have to create some new technology. You can just do a service better than anybody else. And so, but doing it better than anybody else isn't easy. It's like you can't just most people think they're good at things and they're not. And it's like I think I'm getting okay at copywriting and writing, and I have a natural proclivity towards it as well. But like I'm not that good. I'm probably of copywriters. I'm pretty average is my guess. And so what if I can really upskill and be an excellent copywriter? Okay, and then what if instead of offering just Twitter ghostwriting services, it's like I specialize in lead gen for high ticket services, which I'm doing. And then what if I also repurpose their content to LinkedIn? And what if I repurpose their content to Instagram? And what if I handle their outbound on Twitter? So every person that follows them, I send them a DM. And what if I give them a digital library of assets so that it's like even if they don't have any digital assets before, I build that for them. And in 3 months, they have a bunch of content that they can then use for the next 2 decades. And it's all data driven. It's like we know what content resonates with people and what doesn't. So you don't have to go through that experiment again of, oh yeah, let's try this. It's like we already did try that. Just use the things that are working. And so like I'll give you a Hall of Fame content. You know what works best. Um, and I'll give you, I'll give you a course teaching you how to go through Twitter. I'll give you a checklist if you ever want to do this by yourself.
Yeah.
If you ever want to turn it over to your own teammates, I will be the trainer and will teach your team how to do that. It's like then instead of charging $2,500 a month like most ghostwriters do, could I charge 5,000? Could I charge 6,000, 7,500? It's like if I'm trying to think of all the things I could do to add way more value than anybody else is so that I can charge way more. And that way I can make the margins make sense.
For sure. And following along with, did you kind of come up with these ideas, or maybe solidify them more after you're listening to Alex Hormozy?
Yeah, that was a big part of. So I hired a few consultants, two of them, and hop on like week calls with them, and they're both very familiar with my business and Twitter. And yeah, one of them suggested that I read that book, did, and then over this past month, I've been going through that whole offer creation exercise and trying to refine my offer. Like I said, I don't have it set yet. I would love to do a rev share. So like this is one thought. Charge. So right now, by the way, I'm charging on the low end, like for consulting type work, 2,000, and then on the higher end, like 3,500. Like I'm gonna start charging $4,000 for sure at least. But I could do something like this: charge $5,000 one time upfront payment, and then do like a 10 or 15% of the revenue that I bring you through Twitter. The problem is with attribution, which means it's hard to attribute what sales come from Twitter. Sure. Because it's like followers are a lead measure. It's like you're going to get followers, and then some of those will later convert into sales, but they might come through your website because they've been on your Twitter. And it's like, if they come through the website and don't mention that they came through Twitter, I don't get that attributed to me.
Yeah.
Or they have a newsletter and I push people to subscribe to your newsletter. And then it's like they originally came from Twitter. They trust you because of Twitter, but then they bought because of your newsletter. I don't get any attribution. So it gets really grimy and difficult, and I don't know how to do that.
I wonder if there was an app that like was able to, or some technology that was able to track that. Now I'm not sure how that would work because you can't say like, let's say I'm on your Twitter and I'm like, this sucks. Matthew doesn't know how to whatever, right? But then I go to the website. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Well, I did start at Twitter and then I went to the website, but I was sold because of the website, so it'd be kind of hard. But if there was some technology that was able to track that, because my ad agency, when we run ads, they were saying the same thing. They're like, oh, now you're gonna get sales that people are gonna see the ads and they might see it 7 times and then they come and buy in person. And I'm like, yeah, but how am I supposed to know whether that person actually was sold? And so there is a lot of that there was a way to track that, because I think that's a big problem in a lot of industries.
Yeah, I think it's easier with ad buying than it is with what I'm doing.
For sure.
And it's like so a couple of solutions. One, I throw a link on every like I try to push people to calls, and I have a specific link that I can tell if they clicked on it. And then in the Calendly or where they book calls, you have a list of check boxes and say, how did you find us? And you say, oh, was it a referral? Was it through Twitter? Was it through Twitter inbound, Twitter outbound? Because some companies will do outbound and I'm not doing outbound. And so they're like, but would it belong to you if we DM the people, but you're the ones that brought them in. It's just like attribution gets really hairy. So I mean, there's other potential solutions are like I um, say, look, how much money have you made through Twitter in the last 5 months? And they give me a number, and I say, okay, everything above that, like per month, then that's what I want you to pay me on. Or that's hard though too, because now I'm doing all of the work that they were doing to get what their baseline already is. So it's like I need to get paid for that as well. I don't know the best model, but let me give you some examples of clients. It's like fractional CFO. He's my longest client. Been working with him for 6 months, and he has gone from something like 20,000 MRR to 55,000 MRR.
Oh, that's
Okay,
awesome.
and his clients last for 12 months on average. I mean, he's only been going for a year and a half, so he doesn't have perfect data on that, but it could be even longer than 12
Yeah.
months. So, and he's charging them 5 grand a month. So each client to him is worth approximately 60 grand, and I've brought him, it's like if I've added 30 grand in MRR, that's times 12, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like 360K. And he's hired he has now as a team of four, he's hired all of his employees through Twitter. Okay. And then he found a business that he's bought, like, and partners, and now he's getting options. Like, people are reaching out to him, and he's partnering with people to buy new businesses, to invest, and is like, outside of his primary business, he's getting all of these opportunities because he's built this personal brand on Twitter, gone from 1,000 to 10,000 followers. And it's like the lead flow, he's had to tell me to stop several times. He's getting too many leads.
What?
So that's like,
Yeah.
yeah, and over the next year, he wants to go from where he's at, like 55 to 150. And so this is my first client. So he's paying me 2,500 bucks a month. That's it. I write every week for him. It's gotten easier over time, which is great for me. But it's like, should I be getting paid 2,500 bucks a month, or should I have, 10 or 15% of the upside? And as he gets $100,000 additional MRR, like I could be making 10 to 15 grand a month, which is, 5 times more than I'm making. So yeah. Anyway, I've just been thinking that through.
Yeah. No, that's it's really cool to be in this stage of like you're still developing what the business would look like. And I really like that solid 5 years, right? It was five years, 4 million.
Yeah,
Just having something set, and I know that like things change, and in 6 months it might be 10 million, in 7 years or whatever it is. But at least having something, a benchmark, I've seen that really helps me and like other people that actually have those solid benchmarks versus like, yeah, I want to grow the business as big as it can. Like
sure.
what the freak does that mean? What does that actually look like? So having something stable there. Um, who would you say would be like maybe you could pick just a handful of people that you want to be like, um, and kind of follow their example.
Business wise, or
Yeah, maybe both personal and business.
um, so I mean, someone like Palmer Luckey that I mentioned earlier, like just the way that he thinks, I think I want to emulate that principles first thinking and like being willing to take on hard problems. Um, I have a guy who's a mentor to me. I met him through Twitter. And Stephen Ullman. He's like 34. I'm 26, so like 8 years older than me or something. He has a couple of children, and he's got a portfolio of companies that do like, I don't know, $5 to $10 million a year total, and he's growing that, and also lives a very balanced life. And he's talked to me and said, uh, "Don't don't be obsessed with just the pursuit of money." He's like, "I've done that. It was like the worst time of my life," basically. He said, and just like don't get lost in that chase. Make sure, and he's like, don't you don't have to wait to solve any of these other problems you want to solve once you hit your financial goal. Is like, why not start working on them now? I think it's just an excuse. And so, I mean, I think he's just really intelligent. He's been through a lot of the lessons that I want to go through, and he's very successful in business as well as his family life, and knows what he cares about. So, um, those are a few that come to mind right
Yeah,
away. But I have a list of people that I admire and like want to be more like and think more like, and I don't want to be like them in every aspect, but
sure,
in different aspects. Like I have like 20 people on that list,
sure.
and I like to go study them too. A lot of them aren't people I know personally; they're people I watch on YouTube or podcasts or are dead, and I read their books or
Yeah. Um, yeah, I have the same like list of people. One of the guys is like big YouTube channel, does a lot of business videos. I'm like, man, one day
who is it?
I'm gonna
Who is
meet
that?
that guy. It's Patrick Bet David.
Don't know who that
Yeah,
is. Cool.
you gotta look him up. Patrick Bet David. But I'm like that would be so cool. I just want to like sit down with him. Like that would be so cool to like, and I want to become friends with him. And he's like so much above where I'm at right now, but I want to aspire to be like that. So
Dude, what's cool with the podcast is like if you do it for a long time and people like it, like you let your personality fly and you make it fun for people. It's like you got to figure out some unique angle.
yeah,
But eventually, it's like I've followed one podcast since launch like 3 years ago called My First Million, and um, it's these two like Silicon Valley founders that have sold companies and they're already pretty legit. So, but then they're funny and they like banter back and forth, and I've seen their influence grow so much. It's like I saw them on Twitter at the beginning, and they both had 10,000 followers or something. Now they both have 300,000 followers,
mm,
but also they've started multiple businesses and had tons of support. They spent a week with Mr. Beast, the huge YouTuber. It's
yeah,
like it's kind of crazy just how much if you focus on like what you can control, that expands. It's like seven habits of highly effective people. That be proactive. It's you focus on your circle of influence or circle of control, whatever, and it grows. It's like pretty remarkable.
yeah, yeah,
Like you could definitely like at some point in the near future have that guy on your podcast or hop on a call with him as a peer. Things like that are totally possible.
yeah. And that's kind of my vision with this is, um, like just sitting down, learning from people, yes, and then also just making connections. Like I think it's just a great way sit down, um, and catch up, find out about how you're doing, learn about people, and just making connections. And then we're like, now I know more about what your goals are. And then when something comes up in my life, I'm like, hey, I'm planning on doing this in business, or I'm planning on doing this in my personal life. Hey, I know you were talking about something similar. What if we did something together?
Yeah.
And now we're working together versus versus separate. So last question I have for you is, um, what would you say, like top three books that you've read that have helped you be, get to where you are right now?
Um, top three books that helped me get to where I'm at. Um, I I would probably take some more serious thinking, but I'll just spit out a few. It's like recently $100 million offers has been awesome. I really like that. I it's like the answer that comes to my mind immediately, Seven Habits. um, let's see. I I've done a lot less reading of books in the last year or two, and a lot more listening of YouTube, podcasts,
Okay.
etc.
But yeah, that counts. Who would you say there?
Um, so I would say that My First Million podcast has influenced me a good amount. Um, I'm just looking through some of my different podcasts right now and books. Yeah, I mean that those are the answers I'd give you right away. I'm sure I could come up with better answers
My
that
first
are a little more
million,
accurate.
my first million podcast, 7 Habits and $100 million offers.
Sure, we'll say
Yeah,
that.
because I know for me, I really like when I'm watching either an interview or something. I always like getting even more resources that I can take away and I can study afterwards. So, um,
Oh, I was just gonna ask you.
yeah.
I know you're in search of different businesses and what you want to do right now. Two questions. One, have you considered acquiring a business? And then two, what are like a couple of the different ideas that you have right now?
Yeah, so I've thought of it. I haven't put too much thought into it. I looked on the Biz Buy Sell website that has
Mhm.
I feel like it's more local businesses, more brick and mortar businesses on it. Um, and it was just kind of the restaurant and gym, and it didn't really catch my eye that much. Um, but if there was a business that was more attractive, I would be open to buy one. Do you
Yeah,
have
you're
do you
just so
have
good at the operational side of things.
yeah,
It's like from running your previous business, you've gotten really good at that and
yeah,
handling people. It's like I I mean, I think it's an excellent path to wealth acquisition, but yeah, it totally depends what you want to do.
yeah. I mean, I think if the right opportunity came, so if you have some resources of like where I only looked just briefly on that website and it didn't really have anything that I really wanted. Do you know of,
Mhm.
of other places or more of like personal contacts of like, no, you just have to meet different people and then find out about what they're doing.
Yeah, I know both. I could
Okay.
send you some stuff if you want.
Okay. Yeah, please send over. Um so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at there with as far as acquisition and the principles first thinking. Um, I noticed that just today, um, or I guess it was last night, and I was like, how can I make the process even easier? Like with my company right now, we do country dancing, right? And and I'm almost it's almost fully absentee. Like I'm doing, I think I told you the other day, I'm doing about 3 hours of work a week. Um, and I'm like, how can I make it even more absentee? And I just and I was like, I had this thought. I was like, well, I don't think I can. Like it's already automated almost all the way. And then this morning I was just like, no, there has to be something else. And then just boom, an idea popped in my head. I was like, why not get a bigger storage unit? I can put double the amount of supplies in it, and then I can visit it twice or half of as often, right?
Yeah,
It was just like a little idea. I'm like, that would help so much rather than me going there every 6 weeks. I can do it every quarter. And
yeah,
it's so much time and it's so much energy buying the supplies. Why not do double? And so I really like that questioning just our former premises of is this actually the best way of doing things just because that's the way that we are doing things?
sure.
So yeah, I like that. As far as ideas right now, let me ask you this: what is your opinion? Because I remember asking you before I answer your question. I remember asking you like 2 or 3 years ago. I was like, "Yeah, so what's your business idea?" And you're like, Yeah, I don't really want to share my business idea yet because I haven't
I
done
did
it.
not say that.
Yes, you did. I remember being on the phone.
BS.
That's a true story. And
Whatever.
because it stayed with me, I'm like, I I like share my business ideas even though I haven't done it. I just share them and I don't really care because most people aren't going to do them. Now here's my question. Maybe it was somebody else, but I'm pretty dang sure it was you. You can
Mm.
see that smile right on your face. He's lying. He's guilty. I say guilty. Um, my question is, with new ideas, I might do any of these ideas, and they're pretty dang good ideas too. What's your philosophy as far as sharing them before you haven't done them? What do you think there?
It's not what you said it was for me. It's like I'm more than any idea that I have, I will share it,
Okay.
and it's like nobody's gonna do anything about it. That's the truth. Or I mean, if you had a huge audience and had an idea that you wanted to do, I maybe would keep that quiet until you had the company like going. But for the most part, it's like I don't care. I would share almost any idea, and if it's with a friend, it's like I would absolutely share any idea.
Yeah. Okay. Um, well, boom. Got them. I got a few right here. I'll just go through them kind of quickly. Um, one of them, and these are all kind of new ideas. One of them is I was sitting there the other day and I heard my two kids crying in the other room, and I have a home office, right? And they're just like crying. They're like, ah, and I'm like trying to work. I'm like, this is so freaking annoying. What if
Yeah,
we soundproofed rooms like that came standard in a house? And so then I thought I was like, well, how would you do that? And then a friend of mine was like, what if you instead of just putting in regular insulation into the walls, what if you because insulation is there to keep out the cold and the heat, what if you also put another substance on it to keep out the sound? And so it wasn't the walls weren't any thicker. It was the same. You wouldn't have to change anything else. You just changed the insulation.
interesting.
Yeah.
What? How many ideas do you have there? Like 5?
5. Yeah, I have
All right.
5.
What's the next one?
Number 2 would be uh, 85% of burglaries in cars are due to opportunity. Somebody sees it, so they break a window and then they steal it. Well, what if every time you left your car, you lock your car and it auto tints the windows pitch black?
Interesting.
Boom.
Okay.
Gets rid of them.
Next.
Uh, why does every single car in America and probably the world that passed like the year 2000 have auto like electric locks where you lock it and locks all the doors, but 90-95% of all homes not?
Yeah.
They're starting to with higher end smart homes, but it doesn't come standard.
Yeah. Yeah. I live in an apartment that it's like it was built a little bit older, and so we had a terrible old school lock, and we recently had it replaced like a couple months ago because it basically broke. But if you could make it like, I mean, everyone that wants to replace it, it's going to cost money. So
Yeah, so I
buy
I don't I don't think that I would target existing
apartment
homes.
complexes.
No, no, no.
Okay.
I wouldn't target existing whatever buildings, but I would do new buildings, new construction, and so that it just becomes automated. Like it's already there.
I wonder. I feel like most new homes that are being constructed probably already have that, but I
Uh,
don't know.
yeah.
That's interesting.
I'd have to look more into it, but the houses that I've seen, new houses, they still don't have it.
Next.
Then the last idea, best idea, is um, sending an email is 17, excuse me, sending a text message is 17 times more costly than sending an email. Why? Why isn't it the same?
Um, how certain are you of that?
I'm pretty dang sure looking on I send emails and texts myself, and the two top dogs that I've looked at are MailChimp and Twilio for text messages.
Yeah, I wish I knew. Uh, I don't know details on that, but like I said, I write for an email marketer who also does SMS marketing. I haven't seen him say that anywhere. I wonder if it's as big of a deal as it sounds. I know there's pros and cons to SMS marketing, and SMS marketing is already really big. So there's definitely people that have like are either working on that or the problem doesn't exist. I don't know. Or it only exists on the level that you are using it, you know. You probably need to dive into that one quite a bit more. I have some doubts about it,
So
but
so the I've used it for my own business, and so it might be a small business thing, maybe. But I looked at the pricing. If you're a big company sending 1 billion plus text messages, and it only slightly goes down as you're sending mass
17 times more expensive.
17 times more.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
I
that's
think the reason is that email is online, and so the bandwidth is a lot bigger that you can send information through. Whereas text message, it goes through cell towers, and cell towers there isn't as much bandwidth, so it's more expensive.
sounds like that would be a if it let's assume for a second that that's legit,
Oh, it's legit.
then
I can't
then
believe
that
you're
would be a
questioning me. You don't. I'm
that'd
just
be a
kidding.
big problem to
I
solve.
Yeah, I still on all these ideas I still need to do more research and find out. But on the surface of all of these, it's like, interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Dude, I think you're blowing it by not going with the business that I told you.
I just wanna that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah,
But yeah, I we'll have this will have to be continued. To be continued.
sweet. That sounds
Okay.
good.
Awesome, awesome, Matthew. No, thanks so much for jumping on the call, and yeah, just always love talking with you.
It's fun.
Okay, we'll see you, man. Enjoy your time in Cali.
Will do.